then I'll start by asking you, how's your leadership style evolved and changed? What do you value much more today when you look at how you're building this team?
Shireen, I'm a lot more, actually, a little bit different from what Mayank shared earlier. And maybe it's a process of evolution. I'm a lot more authentic, a lot more transparent about all the good and the bad that's happening. I mean, there are obviously some shields that I do apply, which are judgment based depending on scenarios. But I'm very open because, I truly think that the team deserves to know. We are building this together. They have reposed their faith in this vision, in me, and in each other. So I think that's one big part of it. The second, I think transition's been from saying team is family to saying team is a sports team, right? And our role is not, I mean, as leaders, is to be coaches to each other as well, right? And I think the third piece is really identifying the culture carriers. So that entire sort of culture fit piece, I have completely done away with my interview, except there has to be a values fit piece, right? Culture is different, values is different. Values we test for, we do like rigorous background checks and reference checks and conversations on respect, truth, integrity, honesty, all of these things. But I've looked at that very differently going forward as well.
That's interesting. What about you, Meg?
So one thing definitely has changed is that I'm much faster in decision making. I used to take a lot. I would debate. I would internally think, okay, if this, then what, then that, then what. I said now I'm open to I'm open to failure many times, but my throughput of decision making has to be higher. If I can take 10 decisions and nine of them are right, I would rather take 100 decisions and 70 of them are being right. And I think today I look for people who constantly strive to make me redundant. If they're coming in, their job is only to take away things that I'm doing, and they can take on those things and then run with it so that I can take on something else. I think in journey, I've always seen that somebody coming in at junior level, I always tell them make your boss redundant, because if your boss is redundant,
Doesn't make you insecure?
no, no, at this level it does not. But even for everybody else, I think it's a very strong feedback that look, if you work in such a manner that if you have to make your boss redundant, then you have to make yourself redundant first. And you will only make redundant when you can let go of a lot of things and delegate a lot of things to somebody else. Because then your boss will get redundant, so the boss can think something else altogether bigger. So I think here I look for people who is coming with a very clear mindset that look, my job is to make Mayank redundant, and if Mayank is redundant, then I can take up a lot more, and then I can take on a lot more going forward. So I think those three or four philosophies and principles what is shaping what the next one will look like.
But I want to talk to you about what's happening in the ecosystem today. And as I said, there's a lot of euphoria. We've of course seen a fair degree of pain, and we've gone through a correction which we go through practically every few years, and hopefully that's behind us at this point in time. But as you look at what's happening in the ecosystem today, I mean, how do you what's the feeling that you get?
I think there's definitely a feeling of energy that's come back, right? And I think that's on the back of like the democratization of capital through IPOs. And people are finally sort of seeing the retail investor sort of accept and want to make startups and, interesting ventures mainstream and part of the mainstream narrative in a very different way, not just saying, oh, we're mainstream, but actually voting with capital, which is a very big unlock. I think the other piece we're seeing is a shift to domestic investors as well, like the family funds, the HNIs. And I think that's really powerful for a country like India because, someone was telling me that even when the FIIs like took away the capital from stock markets, the stock markets were still sort of, buoyant because there was domestic capital that had entered the market by then. So we're not as a country as sort of, on teetering on the edge, relying on the world to kind of come and rescue us like a damsel, right? We are our own strong women today, right? We're our own strong country today. I think that's the other interesting sort of trend, and that gives a lot of confidence in the India story. I think the third thing that I'm seeing play out is entrepreneurs today are actually dreaming global, Shireen. I think there was and with a value addition, not like with a cost minus. So if you look at the first generation of how software and services was built out, right, it was all about saying, oh, we're a cheaper alternative, back office of the world, right? Then it moved on to saying, okay, we're building for India, right? And that was an amazing narrative. And then there was a whole growth at all costs kind of a narrative. Today, the solutions and the problem statements Indian entrepreneurs are solving for are like, how do you build global brands from India? That's one. How do you think about automation and intelligence in manufacturing, robotics? How do you think about the sustainability? How do you think about solar? How do you think about so many different unlocks that are happening, and also growth, but with profitability.
Speaking of the unlock, and you're talking about IPOs, I mean, Good Glam is heading hopefully towards an IPO, and that's part of the process and plan at this point in time. But is that something that you see for yourself? Is that part of the manifestation?
It is definitely part of the manifestation. Darpan and I talk about it very often. And God willing, it all plays when it has to, when the time is right, even for us, right? And that's why I'm still part of the Good Glam Group in many ways, right? I continue being group co-founder. My designation stays the same. I'm actually moving to an advisory role versus an operational role. So I'm going to be the strategic advisor for global markets for Good Glam, which is right down my alley, given my line of business as well, and given like my belief and my understanding of global markets too. So we're very, very closely associated. We continue to be, and I know that this team has what it takes to make it happen.
Well, IPO somewhere down the line, is that something that you're looking at, as a possibility?
Part of the journey for sure. For Upgrade, I think it's still about 18-24 months away. There's a fair bit of heads down, build a business. I think the market is at a very interesting time because companies are reaching to their growth levels and profitability levels. And for Upgrade also, I think our quarterly levels, we are profitable, and then we are at the right sort of growth mark as well. But we still believe that at the level at which we are in the business, we need to build a lot more predictability. In a private market, you can say, I will be here plus minus 5-10% works. In public market, it's much more brutal than that. So I think we need to build towards that, but it's some time away, but definitely part of the journey.
Is it getting more challenging, the edtech business today, given what we've seen happen around?
Actually, I would say no. I think there has been a little bit of rub off with what happened with some of the larger players in the ecosystem, but sometimes with what happens in the larger player makes it better for some of the current players altogether. So I don't think there's a negative sort of. I think investors are smart. Today, the investors are much smarter. And as Naya said, that today you need more the SBI caps and the ICICIs rather than a BlackRock or Fidelity coming on your cap table. And these guys know the market really well. They know what happened, what went through. They are not seeing the market just from a percentage returns from a particular line or vertical. So I think the markets are much more sophisticated. So I personally feel, I have a counterpoint, I feel the markets are far more rewarding for people who are in the education business because they're building it in the right way.
Okay. So let me end then by asking both of you, and Mayank, I'll start by asking you. I've been focused on trying to put things down on my to-do list outside of work. So I'm going to start by asking both of you, and with you, is there a to-do list that you have for yourself?
Very big.
Yeah?
Very long, very long. No.
Very long.
Yeah.
What do you
No,
have
so-
on it?
So my so I love running. So for me, sometimes people see me down below at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning when they are coming from a party.
Is this part
And
of,
I am going
part
down
of
for
being
run.
a founder up at 3 a.m.,
No.
running at 4 a.m.?
No, that's the best time because there's nobody on the road. So for me, I'm doing the Comrades next year at South Africa, which is an 88-kilometer run. So that's my first to-do list. My second to-do list is next year, I think when England and India are playing the test cricket, just go with my father and enjoy the test match there because both of us are big cricket buff and we have to sort of get it off the list right now. And again, food is a never-ending phenomena. So wherever we are going, from a food perspective, we need to sort of undertake that. I think those between food, sports, it covers my life fully in the process.
Well, since you talked about cricket, so let me go down that road with you. I mean, who is it that you look up to? Do you want the Dravid kind of wall innings? Do you want the Tendulkar innings? Do you aspire for a Kohli innings? What is it that you're working
Look,
towards?
I'm a hardcore Sachin fan. So while I love MS Dhoni, I love the Dravids of the world, but I'm a hardcore Sachin fan because it's just pure beauty. And when you're seeing it, it's a pure beauty. But today, I think I'm in love with Yashasvi Jaiswal. I think he's a mind-blowing and he's a generational talent, and I think he can build something very strong. And we'll all grow up, except for what happened just recently, where from a discipline perspective, he was not asked to be on the bus. But I'm a more Yashasvi Jaiswal fan. But my T-shirt still says number 18, which is to
Nu-
Virat Kohli.
Number 18 for life, is it?
Yeah, number 18 for life. On the Virat Kohli front. Yeah, that's the Virat Kohli's number. Yeah.
So, Naya, what about you? To-do list?
I mean, it's longish, but there is right on top is actually two things. Honestly, Shireen, I have a 6-month-old daughter Raya. I have a 5.5-year-old Arya. My parents and my in-laws are getting older, right? And this time is very precious. So I'm actually just ensuring that whatever time I'm not like obsessed with the business, I'm actually with them. So I can see their journey through their sort of as they get older, I see them getting slower. I see them sort of not able to hear as well, repeating multiple times. And I see my daughters growing up in front of my eyes. So that I think is top of my to-do list. And like at the same level as my time with my husband Sandeep, who I dearly love, and who's been a real partner with me in this journey of life. And I want that to continue, that love that we have to continue, and that needs investment, that needs time. So that's something that's top of my to-do list. Apart from that, I think it's I love art. So I have a smaller house than my uncle's, but there's no wall free. Let me put it bluntly: there's no wall, there's no corner free. Next time we could shoot in my house. It's much smaller. You hear baby wailing. But that's something I'm obsessed with.
So since we're talking about art, if I were to ask you to paint that canvas, so over the next 5 years, the vision for Edition, the strokes that you see coming on, and Mayank, then I'll ask you about Border Plus as well.
I think three things. One is that you'd see come to bear a very beautiful, very intuitive, but also very intelligent product in the market. We'd be in the US first, and then we'd launch in India. We'd certainly launch in India. I want to bring Edition to India, and that's why our headquarters is India. We'll have a sub in the US, right? I think the second piece to it is a team that's thriving, that's super driven, is a small team. I think there is power, there is innovation that happens in small teams. I do not believe in like making a statement with large teams. So I want my team to be small but extremely incredible, right? And that's the team I see myself building with on that canvas of life. And the third is I see my daughter Arya at 10 years old and my daughter Raya at 5 years old, and them sort of playing together and hopefully having a really strong sisterly bond.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck with Edition, Mayank. Border Plus, the strokes on the canvas.
Not as deep as Naya's, but I think for me, what would love to sort of see next 5 years is we have impacted at least about 100,000 people lives meaningfully. And if we do that, we'll be doing about 500,000 people's life, because a lot of them have dependent people around that. So for me, impact of that scale is very critical. The second thing, from a product perspective, I would love if we can build a very strong AI first learning product for people, because Indian dialect, Indian language, Indian approach is very different than, let's say, a native German or native American or native English speaker. So how do you bridge that gap? And then today technology provides enough value for us to sort of figure out and build something out which is much more stronger for people to learn.
Well, we wish you the best of luck, and we hope that you continue to have fun as well as continue to make impact with whatever it is that you choose to do in life and at work. Naya and Mayank, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us here on this edition of Young Turks Reloaded. We will, of course, keep tracking your stories on the program. But for today, thanks very much for your time and, more importantly, your insights.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shireen. Thank you.
Very much.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Young Turks Reloaded. From all of us here on the team, for now, goodbye and many thanks for watching.